All right, Jose, welcome to my first ever podcast.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks for having me, man.
yeah, well, thank you for being generous with your time, and it's really cool to have all of this equipment. I was, I was just discussing with you that I want to do more so live in-person podcasts. It feels more, I don't know, it kind of unwinds and feels like the connection with that person is, it's not as delayed or interrupted if you're doing virtual or through like Zoom. But yeah, man, I'm excited to start this. I've been thinking over and over how I'm going to construct this podcast. And I think that honestly, overthinking and just kind of, dropping that and just going towards flowing with my own natural curiosity.
Yeah.
Some of the most, the people that I admire that are doing podcasts right now, they seem to be free with how they can express the topics that come to like interest for them.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do. I will admit, most likely we'll be talking about Bitcoin, or I'll be talking about Bitcoin a decent amount.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think about, the name of everything and whatnot, and I just kept it with my name for now. And that could change, who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, excited for my first podcast episode, and thank you again. Why don't you introduce yourself? You just moved here to Austin from our hometown. In New England, in Massachusetts. And you've been working your butt off, man. You've been working your ass off.
Been trying.
And I thought it would be great to just introduce what you're doing, why you moved to Austin. We can get into Bitcoin and other things after that. But yeah, I think just getting an idea of what you're doing right now.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me as the first guest.
Yeah, man.
I'm especially humbled by that. As a podcaster, not many of us get to be on the other side of the table, right? Rarely do we get interviewed, because usually the podcaster is the interviewer. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to thank you for that. Also wanted to give you big kudos, because you're doing something that I express to a lot of people when I talk to on a day in, day out basis. And that's basically is, if you have an idea for a podcast, do it. And this is before I get into what I'm doing and all that. But what usually tends to happen with people is they feel, because they're into a lot of different podcasts themselves, that it would be impossible to kind of cut through the woods, right, and be able to get their own show to be able to be something. Mm-hmm. I disagree with that wholeheartedly, because it's a free market competition for speech. And the way I like to think about it is there's enough listener time for every single person to get their point out. And there's always somebody who relates to you more than they relate to somebody else. Mm-hmm. So to whoever's listening, do what Shane did. If you're thinking about a podcast, don't hesitate. You'll figure it out as you go.
I don't know what I'm doing.
It lies in the beauty is that, yeah.
Going with the flow right now.
Yeah, but go with it, do it, don't hesitate, partner up with people, talk to people, because your opinion matters. And I've spoken to you plenty of times off the microphones, and I know that you have a lot of valuable things to say and add to society.
Thank you.
But you carry yourself the right way, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So I think more people should see that and hear that. I think that'll transcend through the show.
Yeah.
All right, about me. So I work at Unchained Capital with you. My name's Jose. People know me as Deathbed online. That's kind of the person, the character that I play on TalkinginBits. And people have been calling me Def for a long time. Why people call me Deathbed? Well, I used to be a rapper. That's terrible to say now. I don't know. I think I had some good stuff.
Yeah.
But I used to, I try to self-call my first album Till My Deathbed. And then Def, DEF being like a moniker of Def Jam, mm-hmm. right? So Deathbed, Till My Deathbed. And then eventually it just turned to Deathbed, and now people just call me Def, which is fine. I host a TalkinginBits show. That's my baby, if you want to call it that. Something that I've been building for a little while, starting to gain traction, starting to do really good things. So Unchained Capital, TalkinginBits. And I'm working extremely hard on helping others, such as yourself,
yep.
Take advantage of of resistance, censorship. When it comes to free speech, resistance, technology. I spoke about this briefly before we went on. So I'm on this, I call it like a continuous rant, but it's on a mood, a vibe, whatever analogy you want to use there, of, Bitcoiners are the only type of individuals that are willing to take on big term problems. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is we obviously know we're taking on money and state. We're trying to separate the money and the state. I was talking to Andy from Crowd Health, and we're taking on the healthcare system and the way that works. Slim Beef Initiative, we're taking care of the food, right? And we're trying to solve these major problems that have destroyed society, that are pegged to fiat, but destroyed society, in like this pyramid of destruction that they consume. Well, free speech is one of those things too. Mm-hmm. Right? And free speech is one of those that, as we know, you get censored from YouTube, you get censored from places where, COVID, we saw a lot of that, where it was like, hey, you say anything about a vax or, whatever, they're going to cut your show down. Mm-hmm. So we have this freedom of speech, but it's like in quotations. It's like whenever that entity or that, institution feels like giving it to you. So, since 2018, I've been doing podcasting, and I've started to understand what the RSS feed, and just to speed it up and make a long story less long, the RSS feed is damn near bulletproof. Mm-hmm. Like an RSS feed is literally just some XML code that basically has your episode, your show, your audio file, everything embedded to it, and this RSS feed could be distributed across the world. Very lightweight, sort of like a node, right? Like Bitcoin transactions, and can't be stopped because, sure, you may open your Spotify and not see Talking in Bits, but you can open up Fountain and see Talking in Bits, or you can follow Talking in Bits' RSS feed, right, and not need any of those apps. And then there's new advancements like what Evan from Zeus did with Echo, and we can talk about deeper. I'm kind of going in a different tangent, where now you can actually host podcast players inside of your node.
Interesting.
Amazing. So like now even the website can't stop you from being listened to.
See, when you say podcast players, the first thing that comes to mind is Umbrel's software application and user interface.
Yeah. I don't have an Umbrel, but
yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
But is that what you mean? You're able to incorporate different applications into your node? And
yeah, this was literally announced a few days ago. So what my understanding of this is, depending on when you hear this, of course, my understanding of this is like right now you wake up in the morning, you load up Spotify, that's your podcast player, right? Or you load up Apple Podcasts, that's your podcast player, et cetera, go down that line. Google Music, Google Podcasts, whatever.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that although the RSS feed is still prevalent, meaning that if they shut it down, your RSS feed still works, you still need a player to play that RSS feed. So Google can literally or Apple or any of these can literally block you from the search, from podcast. So you can go, I think this happened to Alex Jones, this happened to a bunch of people actually. You can go to Apple and type in Talking in Bits, and if they think that I'm talking shit, then they're going to be like, oh, well, it doesn't exist. No search query, right? So now, basically, your player lives inside of your node, which, as we all know, has consensus by you. Everything that's in it is decided by you. So now you can literally just go from, and I'm hoping that this leads to Evan installing this into Zeus, sort of like Breeze does. I don't know if you ever used Breeze.
No, not yet.
So Breeze has a POS system, which is like a wallet, and then there's a tab that has podcast. So you can go from taking transactions to going to value for value in the same app. So I'm thinking now, if you're connected to your node from your Zeus wallet, which I do, I think most people do because Zeus is the best way to go non-custodial. They're allowing you soon to be able to access RSS feeds through your Zeus app through your node.
Oh, cool.
So you can't be shut down, literally.
Yeah.
So even if they shut down the RSS feed, if they shut down the web page, you can still get to the feed. They can't shut down the RSS feed, but you can get that. If they stop your RSS feed from being on their player, you can still subscribe directly to the RSS feed. There's this fortification being built out around podcasting, especially with value for value, that protects individuals like you and that. That allows us to say, and I say this on my show a lot, but I literally designed Talking in Bits for me to be able to say what I want when I want. Some people don't like that. Some people think I'm out of bounds. Sometimes I get my cousin, my New England, right? And some people think that that's just nonsense. Oh, well, you don't really make you don't make impact by being passionate. I disagree. I think when you were on my show, we talked about this. There's the Tony Robbins way to inspire, and then there's the David Goggins way of inspiring.
Yeah.
Right. So I like to think I'm more towards the David Goggins way, where it's if I have to stand up and get in your face and call you a little bitch for not being that person, I think that a lot of people wake up to that, right? That's the whole point of a drill sergeant.
Yeah.
Right? If a drill sergeant in like Bugs, right, was like, hey, Shane, man, don't worry about it, man. Like, you're tired. I get it. Like, just take over there and take a breather.
Yeah.
You will never be the best Navy SEAL you can be. So that's how I kind of justify my rants and justify the way I do things is, first of all, I pay for everything. I'm not under sponsorship or censorship or anything. And then the second part is why have a platform if you can't say what you want to say?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm on that one.
Yeah, I like how we were just talking about how you use Fountain. So Fountain is using RSS feed.
Yep. Value for Value podcast. Shout out to Fountain. Great things.
Yeah.
I want to make it clear, though, Fountain is not the only way to enjoy podcasts. That one's a dub. But the other one that most people don't understand is Fountain is not the only way to stream sats and get value for value. So shout out to Fountain. There is a bunch of different apps that do this, but I give Fountain credit because I've been doing value for value since 2020, and it was really hard to stream sats. Fountain took on the problem of how do we get more people to onboard to Lightning to stream sats, and they made it easier for people to onboard and do that. In retrospect, there's a lot of apps that do it now, but in the very beginning, there was Fountain, there was Breeze, and I think there was Sphinx Chat.
Yeah.
And you needed to have a node, you needed to have liquidity in your channels, you needed to do a bunch of different stuff in order to get even one sat to come over to your favorite podcaster.
Yeah.
Now you could just load up a Fountain wallet, throw $5 in it, and like start streaming away.
Yeah.
So that's why I give them credit. But
yeah, so a lot to unpack there. One reason why I wanted to start this podcast was because I've met a ton of just really interesting people in the Bitcoin community, but also outside the Bitcoin community.
yeah,
And I've got a few friends that still don't use Bitcoin. They know that I do, and they want to learn about it. And essentially, I think by having this platform and trying to indulge in people's, their unique perspective of how Bitcoin can help them, and kind of explaining in layman's terms, so that they can, this audience that's not using Bitcoin, they can understand that. I wanted to see how you found Bitcoin, how you discovered Bitcoin, how you kind of digested this, because it is a very technical and esoteric topic.
it is.
And for us, like, we can just talk about it, regularly. But for the listeners that are not into Bitcoin as deep as we are, how did you stumble upon Bitcoin? What were the resources that you found that helped you with this to really click in your mind? And why are you so passionate about it? Besides, censorship of free speech.
That's a great question. Lower your mic a little bit, Shane. I just don't want you to cover your face there. That's an amazing question. So there's a few different ways. I'm gonna give you the person who put me onto Bitcoin was my brother-in-law. His name is Ben. Great guy.
Did I meet him here? Was that?
He's gonna be here in the next few weeks. You might have not met him yet, but he was the my co-host for like the first 50 episodes of TalkinginBits. Okay. He was to this day a really good. I don't know if this is the accurate term, but a really good. I don't know if an entrepreneur is the way. Yeah, entrepreneur. He knows how to get money. Mm-hmm. That's one thing that I've noticed about him. So he's very good at taking skills and turning them into money, which is, if you really think about it, it's entrepreneurship. That's what it is. It's being able to get something you're really good at and turn it into money. So I used to do a lot of weddings with him. That's where I learned a lot of my video stuff, if not all my video stuff, and lighting and things like that, and the importance of cameras. So I owe a lot to Ben. But there was one underlying theme with Ben where in that pursuit of always getting money comes shitcoins. Mm-hmm. Right? Because you're an investor at that point. Like, he understands that, like, I don't need to do all Bitcoin. I could do some Bitcoin, some Ethereum, some Ripple, some XRP, some all this other stuff, which all sound like bad words now. But at the time, I was very naive. I wanted to go get, right, because I was working my 9 to 5 literally looking up to this guy saying like, oh, he left his job.
Yeah.
Like he figured it out. Like, so he can give me the blueprint and kind of mentor me. So, and this is probably the most detailed I've ever gave this story because my listeners usually get the fast shitcoin version of it. But yeah, I got wrecked. He told me to buy XRP, Bitcoin Cash, all this other stuff. Not because he was malicious, but because he probably didn't know the power of Bitcoin at the time either. And was just saying, hey man, if you want to come up, this crypto thing is real. Like people are making mad money on this. This was about, is it the 2017 bull market, 2018? The one before the 2021, of course. So this was around that time. I saw a little bit of a pump, and then I started to get I started to get wrecked. Right? I started to see things just drop really fast. Bitcoin being the first one, then everything else plummeted after that. And then I got scared shitless because it was the only little bit of money that I had left, and I bailed out. I was like, look, I'm cashing out all this shit. Fuck crypto. I'm done with this stuff. So we had a lot of conversations about it, me and him afterwards. He kept doing his thing. He kept stacking everything, but stacking. And I was just like, look, if I'm working this 9 to 5 and I'm making this pretty shitty ass check, I'm not about to lose my family's dinner on crypto.
Yeah.
So I stayed away from it for a while. Probably about 2 years came around. And then, although 2 years passed by, I started figuring out this trend and a lot of Bitcoiners get to this pain point. I started figuring out a trend that my wife and I, both working, for some reason whatsoever, could never make it past a saving of $2,000.
Okay.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Like, both people working, both people like adamant about making a better future for their kids, putting money away, living underneath their means. Well, except, I mean, we did have a big family. We have 4 kids, so like that. But like every time, it was like this imaginary threshold. Every time we got to like $2,000, a big purchase would have to happen. Like, oh, we need a washer now. We need some shit now. Fast forward now, we all know inflation, all that stuff is happening, right? So it was like something that was like being rug pulled. So there, I started figuring out, well, what the fuck's the problem? Like, is it me? Do I need a second job? And then eventually I started circling into, well, the inflation thing, the 1971 thing. So a lot of people find Bitcoin then 1971. I actually found 1971 before I found Bitcoin. And then I started figuring out.
So when you say 1971, are you pointing to the website What the Fuck Happened in 1971?
The information, not the website. Yeah.
Okay.
So like understanding that we moved from the gold standard,
yes,
and understanding what started happening to the dollar,
yep,
and compensation went down as work went up. I started to figure that out, and then I was like, oh shit, like there's something wrong with the money.
Yeah.
Like there isn't really something wrong with me. And then that's when I slid into gold for a second. I say literally a second because it was like a week where I was like, well, how do I get gold? How can I get gold? Whatever. And then I'm always following technology, so then Bitcoin came into that orbit. Yeah. And then from there, the rest is history. It was Dirt GG in the beginning. That's to answer the resource question. Yeah. And then from there, it was very early on to nodes. I had a really good buddy. He's an Anon, and he's not boisterous on Twitter, but I found him on Reddit, and he actually walked me through setting up my first Raspberry Blitz, my node.
Oh, cool.
Like literally this is where I first learned that Bitcoiners are the most generous people with their time. This dude met me. I asked one question: what the hell is a Lightning node, and is it different from a Bitcoin node? That's what I asked on Reddit. And this dude came, mentored me, walked me through it, helped me set it up. It was like a 3-week process in the beginning, which most of y'all were umbrals are taken for granted. You could just plug and play. Yeah. It took me 3 weeks to figure out how to get my node going. And then the rest is history there. I just became enthused. So Bitcoiners have a way of like teaching you about economics, teaching you about sovereignty, teaching you about, all these things. And then you can't unslip when you're in the rabbit hole. Like you're just going deeper and deeper.
Yeah. I was just looking at the performance of the Dow and S&P 500, all the major indexes, with a couple Unchained colleagues. And we were denominating it in Bitcoin as well as the M2 money supply and seeing the differences. And I even asked my parents this and other people. I was like, have you ever tried to denominate these indices with a fixed supply of whether it's gold or whether it's Bitcoin?
Sure.
And then see the miraculous difference of it going down since the 1970s. And most people don't understand that. They don't understand that when you're denominating a measurement of, the S&P 500 or a stock or whatever it may be, with a supply of money that has an infinite supply, the that performance and that metric is flawed. It's
Yeah.
an illusion.
100%.
And so, yeah, I mean, overall, that's been something that I've been trying to tell people that I care about that don't understand economics. They don't understand finance. They don't understand the history of money. They don't understand, like,
Right.
they're not into this, but they're very good people and they're
Right.
working very hard. And so that's been a unique, and honestly, I'm kind of grateful to test my own skills and knowledge with
Yeah.
trying to most optimally describe to people why it's so important to understand money
Yeah.
and to get where they are at in regards to their understanding.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just like almost every single time that I have this conversation with someone, it's different. It's completely different.
Yeah.
'Cause you have to understand where their first principles are,
Right.
or where their base knowledge is. So yeah, man, it's been trying to discuss this with people is very challenging, and people typically they'll push back on it, or they do conflate it with other altcoins,
Yeah.
whether it's Ethereum or whether it's Ripple or whether it's other cryptocurrencies out there. And so, I'm really grateful to be able to have, you mentioned Gigi.
Yeah.
He's got bitcoin-resources.com. I just dish that out to tons of people.
Do you? Yeah.
It's such a great,
I don't use that, surprisingly enough, but I got a Bitcoin Q&A has a nice ever resource
Okay.
guide that I like it. But yeah, similar vein. It's like a collection of good info.
yeah, I mean, I feel like he's put the most high signal
Sure. Shout out to Gigi.
resources of literacy. So whether it's books, podcasts, blogs, I don't think he has tweets out there, but he's got this huge list of resources, and I just give that website. I just tell them, like, listen, this website has all that you need.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, keep it focused.
I
But
agree with
nowadays, it's. I mean, I go to this local gym here in Austin. There's a lot of high performance or just overall mindful, open-minded people, and every single time that I typically have a discussion with them, not every. I mean, there's a few people here and there, but they'll say, well, yeah, I mean, I bought a little bit of Ethereum and different altcoins here and there, and so I try to approach it so that I don't come off as closed-minded, which is very
Tough.
difficult because people can say, well, a specific moment, this one girl that I was like in the sauna, and I told her what I did, and she was like, yeah, so you're into crypto, and I was like, no, it's just Bitcoin. I try to say Bitcoin infrastructure.
Yeah. Interesting.
I think,
Why is that?
I don't know. It's just something that I've been playing with.
Yeah.
Trying
Sounds
to.
better.
It sounds better, and people typically will kind of turn their head and say, like, what do you mean infrastructure? Like
Right.
crypto, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no. Bitcoin infrastructure.
Yeah.
Leveraging the network with Unchained's, specifically with Unchained, offering, a few different financial services loans, Bitcoin IRA, using cold storage, trading desk that goes directly to cold storage, but it's Bitcoin only. And this one girl, she was just like, wow, that's not the best move for you. I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, why wouldn't you take advantage of diversifying?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a mental model that a lot of people have, is they continuously try to put all of their eggs in different baskets.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of why I wanted to have this podcast. I know there's plenty of podcasts out there.
Sure.
Is to be able to connect with friends that I make out here in Austin.
Yep.
And to be able to have different people on the podcast to describe much more eloquently than myself, different ways to view Bitcoin and understand Bitcoin, and to explain why it's so important now more than ever. I try to tell people that you were just discussing how you were at a point where you'd have $2,000 saved, and then that was really it.
Yeah.
You have you have your fixed expenses, and then you have different, miscellaneous expenses that come up. For me, just the other day, I was paying for my car, and I was like, holy shit, I just regular maintenance, and it was like almost $400.
Yeah.
And I was,
crazy.
before I've had this car for 5 years now, and just like a year ago, it was about $200, maybe $150 for that maintenance.
Right.
And that's obviously because of inflation.
Yep.
Cost of living is going up. But yeah, I mean, I try to explain to most people that are not in even crypto or finance or Bitcoin that I give them a simple number of if you have $10,000 saved in your bank account, the simple act of saving is no longer available to you.
Yeah.
And they start to question, well, I understand there's investing, but I just don't have the time right now. I don't know really what to do. And Parker talks about this in some of his blogs. Parker Lewis has a few blog series on Unchained's website that talks about how, investing used to be more of a, you had to be taking on a lot of risk to be doing that.
Yeah.
And it was an act put forward by the individual to, assess the risk, understand that, I am using the money and energy that I've saved aside to go on into a venture that might prosper and bring forth more wealth, compounding wealth in the future. But now investing is saving. So what I mean by that is, the S&P 500, if you're just like having a good majority of your wealth and what you save is now almost, you don't have the option to not put that in something that is appreciating in value by 3 or 4 or 5, 6%, whatever it may be.
Right.
And so the people that I talk to, the friends that I make here in Austin, some of them don't understand that.
Yeah.
And so you have to outpace the rate of inflation.
Yeah.
So just because, what's happening with COVID, what's going on with the war in Ukraine and Russia, what's just happening overall, I mean, just in the broad spectrum of just the United States printing more and more money, every time that they print billions and billions of dollars, which they are doing every single month.
Oh, yeah.
Your $10,000 in your saving account, if you are not putting that aside to appreciate in value, you are losing money.
Yeah.
It's an invisible tax.
Yeah.
And we've discussed, everybody that we work with, all the Bitcoin podcasts discuss this. It's pretty well known, obviously. But there's still a good amount of people that don't understand this when I meet them on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Here in Austin. And Austin is pretty well known for having a presence of like-minded Bitcoin enthusiasts or engineers, developers, entrepreneurs. But there is still a lot of people that don't understand this.
Yeah, I like to go on the you hit everything on the head there. I think the what I'll call interstellar properties of Bitcoin, and that's not even a real thing. I just made that up. But
I like it.
One of the things that I try to, because you're right, if you come out, it's very easy for you to come out and say everything that you just said or something along those lines and come off as cultish, Maxi, you're falling asleep at the, how come you don't diversify, all these things. What I like to try to remind people of in my day-to-day, and I do this by action, not necessarily by speaking, is Bitcoin has this like amazing ability to make you forget about money. And it does and it doesn't. This is why I call it interstellar, because it is money, right? It is currency. But I've said this before, and I've talked to a few people here at Unchained about it. At the bottom of my stack of why I Bitcoin is money, right? So Bitcoin has unleashed sovereignty in every aspect of my life. And I think that is a much more, back to me not being able to get past $2,000. That's because I was so hell-bent and focused on money, and so focused on $2,000, and so focused on that being important, and so focused on that. Since I've gone deeper down the rabbit hole, I've come to figure out what most people that are fortunate figure out, and that is that value is exchanged much more differently than just with money. Mm-hmm. It can be like money is the fast settlement of that value for value. Like, hey man, here's $50. Thanks. I appreciate it. Right. But, Bitcoin has taught me that you can share, you can barter. You can go back to you can share skill. You can share time. You can share these things. And you are much more wealthy in the long run once you start thinking that way. So the reason I don't call myself a financial Bitcoiner, like M2 numbers and stuff like that, don't come to me for that. I don't know much about anything about that.
Preston Pish can just hop on his podcast. He'll help you with that.
Sure, yeah, and I'm a Pish fan. Not so much recently. When I first got on, you spoke about resources. I was a big Preston Pish guy, but to me, it was the energy that Bitcoin was allowing me to unlock in my life, and for those of others. So now, without actually giving any numbers, I could confidently tell you I'm the wealthiest I've ever been. I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm the most successful I've ever been. The food I'm eating is the soundest food I've ever had. Right? Like this isn't all because of money. This is all because of Bitcoin, which happens to be a money. So I try not to talk to people about what's going on in their bank accounts because that's a touchy subject for a lot of people. Some people think that, like if you have, $250,000 in your bank account, that might be a conversation you want to have. But if I got $2,000 in my bank account, don't tell me that it's the wrong way because I've been working hard to get this $2,000, right? So if you were to come to me and tell me, hey, your savings is, the Michael Saylor line, melting like an ice cube. If I had $2,000, I'd be really pissed off at you for that. Not because you're saying lies to me, but because it's touchy. That's my family's money right there that you're talking about.
So you're saying like me bringing up the
anybody, not just you. I don't want to single you out, but like when we go, put this down. When we go as Bitcoiners. And we start telling people that, like I said, your savings doesn't work anymore. And all that is accurate and all that is 100% true.
Yeah.
But me, as the person who worked mad hard to get $2,000, is going to consider that a threat coming from you. Not maybe a physical threat, but like, hey, man, this guy, what the fuck does this guy know, right? Like, I've been working my ass off. I can make $4,000 now. He doesn't know shit. And that's the illusion that they have. That's the rat race. That's them being trapped in that. But if you are able, and I had a little bit of experience in marketing before, so if you are able to highlight a touch point that you can hit and that you can explore, which is like, okay, let's not talk about your savings account and let's talk about why your life is stressful. Is it because you're working, right? Like, and now you're having conversations that they're not threatened by and they actually want to empower themselves, which is the sovereign piece of Bitcoin. And then eventually you can orange pill your way to, oh, well, sovereignty in Bitcoin, money's broken. That's why that's happening. So this is just a counter to like how most orange pill, which you're absolutely correct, and why maybe you're not finding much success rate. I don't think I have much success rate either, but I find that the people that really stick around, that I have gotten to really understand it in the sovereign aspect, on the censorship resistant aspect, on the how it can make you a better person aspect. I actually talked to Gigi about this on the podcast. John Ballas talks a lot about this, and it's basically like, what are the properties of Bitcoin that just make you a better human being? After that comes the money. And that's my orange pilling. I try to like show with the way I eat, show with the way I spend, show with the way I give my time, that fucking money system is just bullshit. Like I don't even want to come here and be like, yo, Shane, I'm going to charge you X amount of dollars to do this. Because to me, not only is that nasty in my mouth, but what you're giving in return to me isn't even valuable. You're just giving me dollars, man. Like, what the fuck? I'll go spend that up the street like right now, or my gas tank is going to eliminate that dollar as soon as I get back to my house. So I found that, Bitcoin, although it is money, it's the lowest part of the stack for me. I think it's just being a better human being, being around like-minded individuals and solving big world problems that should attract people to Bitcoin, not the charts, not what's happening to the dollar, not what's happening to the yen, and not all that. Eventually you bump into that.
Yeah.
It's important. But that's a lot for somebody who doesn't have a financial background to go into.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to trying a different, like an alternative way of discussing this with people that don't have experience or knowledge, or they don't really care too much about money or Bitcoin, I try to mention or introduce the high and low time preference.
Yeah.
That Saifedean talks about in his book, The Bitcoin Standard. How an infinite supply of money essentially is, yes, it is, in a way, your savings is becoming a melting ice cube. But, yeah, I think Robert Breedlove talks about it as it's an attention allocation mechanism or technology.
Sure.
So when you have a bad form of money, an unsound form of money, typically through manipulating the supply, your way of being completely changes. So your way of thinking, your way of acting. This is due to the fact that it's harder for you to save to support yourself just for the basic needs. So eating, live, shelter, whatever it may be, supporting your family, this becomes more difficult. And so when you have a sound form of money, I mean, Saifedean was here the other night and he was saying, if we were on a Bitcoin standard and we started, with sound money back in the 80s or 70s, a house would cost 150 units of account, whatever units you're using, if it was, in this case, sats.
Yeah.
That technology over time, and this is intertwining also, Jeff Booth, he remarks on how the cost of living becomes deflationary. And what that means is it overall decreases because the improvement and advancement of technology, the expense to create goods and supplies and services goes down.
Yeah.
So thus making the price signals go down. And so, yeah, for me, I try to, some people take it, they start to think that I'm woo, like they think that the discussion when it goes into this aspect, it's like woo woo, or, money being a medium of exchange that also is just transferring energy from one person or one entity to another in a peaceful way. People tend to think, I don't know, when you're saying it's a transfer of energy, you're kind of going into some weird territory.
Yeah.
So when it comes to high time preference and low time preference, I try to see if that individual that I'm talking to is able to recognize that and fully understand that over time, if you have an unsound form of money, you think in a high time preference mode. And so so ultimately your character is completely defined in a way that's inferior.
Sure. Yeah. I agree with that. It all makes sense to somebody who's done as much info as you have, as much research as you have, because I'll be honest, before I even came, I don't have a financial background. So before I even came into Bitcoin, I had no idea what a high time preference, low time preference was. Mm-hmm. So like, that's another aspect. Ultimately, man, I'm just a hippie with it, I guess, man. Like, I like to live it and like show it. Like, yeah, man, like when I have the opportunity to put out my Bitcoin wallet, I pay in front of people, right? When I have the opportunity to like speak, like, or buy, like when we sit down at the dinner table, I'm going to buy sound food. I'm going to buy a steak, right? I'm going to buy, right? Yeah. And then people just start naturally wondering because they see you be better, right? Yeah. So they're like, oh man, well, you look great. How have you been? Oh man, you moved to Texas. How the hell did you do that? Like, oh man, whatever the oh man is, or like, oh man, you just pay for that instantly. Oh man, like there's always an oh man, right? So to me, it's like, live it, because there's always, and I got kids, so I know this for a fact, there's always people watching the way you live it.
Yep.
Right? There's always that little person or the adult in the room that's watching, well, how the fuck did Shane do what he do? Right? And naturally, they're going to come to you because you're going to be the source of that, of how Shane did it. And then that's when I think you have your ability to kind of dig deep and start talking to them about like, well, TLDR, Bitcoin, right? Mm-hmm. Like, this is how I got here. This is why I moved to Texas. This is why. But it's so big, man. Yeah. Like, I can't tell you that the one reason I moved to Texas is Bitcoin, right? Because the answer is it's because of sovereignty. But then you've been saying, you go down this rabbit hole to figure it out that the money's broke. And the closer you are to hard money, right, the more sovereign you are. Mm-hmm. So, like, how you get there is how you get there, man. But to me, it's like, I've talked a lot. I have a show. I talk a lot. I've tried to like orange pill older folks and talk to people about the similar things that you're using, which is the money supply, and how TLDR, it's been stolen from them. Because I like to remind my parents and the older folks that like, they took this from you. You didn't do anything wrong. You were doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. They did that, right? The devaluing of the dollar did that. But it doesn't work very well because people have a lot on the line. Like if you talk about the older folks, like your parents, my parents, or whatever, like, man, like for them to start anew, it's nah, I'm not doing it.
Well, it's a huge risk in their mind too.
Right. It's like, I'm about to lose all of this just because you say so.
And especially with Bitcoin still, I mean, it's in the short term, it's been pretty stable
extremely stable
with its price.
Yeah. Extremely stable.
It's only 14 years old and its price has been very volatile.
Yeah.
So for someone that's retiring, and they have $500,000 in their retirement account, and they're maybe 3 years away from retiring and just living their life.
Yeah.
Why would they even think about
You're crazy.
onboarding
They think you're crazy.
their retirement account
100%.
into this magic internet money?
I mean, and then you got to think about it in another example too. Like if the finish line is retirement, because that's what they've been following and chasing. Man, I'm right there at the finish line, and now you're gonna tell me you're gonna push the field goal post back or the finish line back. Like, go. I don't know if I can swear here, but go F yourself.
I mean, you already have.
I know, but like people don't like it. I don't know why.
Nah,
but anyways,
go ahead,
they're gonna tell you to go fuck yourself is what I'm trying to say, because the point of getting to retirement is being able to liquidate everything that I have ready for me to liquidate. Travel the world, as they like to say, and do it. So now you're telling me that I got this asset that I can't really spend anywhere unless I know how to spend it.
Yeah.
Right? So for those people, the orange pilling is damn near impossible.
Yeah, I mean, as of late too, for spending it, there's a lot of tools and resources.
But do they know those tools at their age?
No.
I could hit you with a bunch of them. But
Unless you're, what's his name? Lawrence Leopard.
I don't know who that is, but shout out to him because he sounds like he's based.
He's, I've met him before. He's out in Massachusetts. He's been on a few podcasts. He's a Bitcoiner. He was at BitBlock Boom. He came to the Bitcoin Commons of like at least one event here. But I think he's in his 60s, and he's based.
Yeah.
He knows,
people are.
he knows what he's doing when it comes. He recommends Moonwall a lot because
I do too.
for people his age or even older, it's as simple as using your bank app. And it's even more simple.
Right. Like there's no sign up process. You just load the bitch up and you're ready to receive. I agree. That's the one that I wrote with as well. I mean, for my node, I got Zeus, etc. To transfer fiat, we got Strike, of course. Like, so listen, I have a wallet section on my phone.
Yes.
But I have that. My parents don't have that. My parents like, look, I got some Bitcoin I'm putting away in cold storage for them, and they still don't even want to play with the device. They're like, fuck that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, in comparison to the past 4, 5, 6 years, the applications, tools that you can use to use Bitcoin,
100%.
like you're using with Venmo, it's there.
100%.
Where it wasn't before. I mean, you had to be pretty...
I explained the nodes earlier in the show.
Yeah.
Like you needed to have a node with liquidity.
I mean, I still have a plug and play node.
Yeah, right.
You know,
and
like
that was 3 weeks to set my shit up. Like, it was like literally terminal hard code trying to get my node to fucking spin up. And like, now you just ready to go. And now you don't have to manage liquidity anymore. Like now you got like apps like Fountain and things like that where it's like inbound and outbound. People are still wondering like, what's that?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, that's how this whole shit works. Well, that's how Lightning works. So it's like, I still think it's a lot for older people. The closer to retirement they are, it's a lot for them to get, unless their goal after retirement is to continue to hold on for their kids or their legacy.
Which most of them are doing.
But most of them want to travel the world.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so like, so like...
Yeah, they got to do their thing too. They got to live their life.
So like there is a demographic that wants to travel the world and blow it, quote unquote. And then there's those that are like, well, I did this to keep going and to give this to my kids. Those are easy orange pill, because then you could give them the whole sailor, storage of time and energy and all that stuff. Yeah. By the way, I want to cut this off with sailor because I've been one of the, like earlier in like the first 50 episodes, I've been one of the like the sailor haters, I guess. I'm not really hating. It's just more like the idea of one individual hoarding that much.
It's the cyber hornets.
I guess
cyber
so.
Hornets. What I mean
wasn't that his term though?
I think it was actually.
Yeah.
But what I mean by that is there's a lot of people that have been in the Bitcoin space for a long time, and they've been working really hard and dedicating a lot of their energy to upholding the network. And when you have someone that's as powerful, wealthy as Michael Saylor, hop into the Bitcoin space, this is kind of like, I don't know, there's probably other people that were wealthy and to his status, but I'm wondering if they looked at someone. I mean, I think all Bitcoiners look at people like him and just other people in general with a little bit of skepticism to make sure that they have the right intentions. And so that's where, over time, you just look at what he's saying and what he's doing. Yeah,
well, that's what I was getting at, is like he would be the one to orange pill the older ones, because lately, I would say, I mean, always, but lately, he's really dialed in his orange pilling. Like his way of being able to explain, like he has that weird, like goofy voice, but
he's very well spoken.
He has been always, but it was always like overkill. Like it was always different. And now he's really like leaned it down into like, Just very easy examples. One that I liked though was him breaking down like how much it takes. I think he gave like a 6% number, but how much energy is lost in moving at 500 miles.
Yeah.
I was just like listening to this and I was just like, this dude is a genius. But
when it comes to gold.
no, just electricity. He kind of ties all that into gold and everything, but like he was basically saying like being able to store in Bitcoin, the electricity that's being put out by miners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then being able to send that all, to the other side of the world for 4 cents.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, now grab that same electricity and try to get it to Japan. He's like, you're gonna go 500 miles on wires, and you're gonna lose 6% of that electricity. Right. So then add another 500 miles using 6%. So he's like, now I can encapsulate all that energy instead of having it go over some wires and put it into an asset or whatever you want to call it, and then basically do that for 4 cents and not lose that 6% every single time. Which I'm like, people don't really think about that, but the reason your electricity bill is extremely high when it gets to your house is because it has to get to you.
Yeah.
Like people just take it for granted and think that it just comes magically off the ground. So for him to be able to explain that even in electricity standpoint, not all the other things that Bitcoin does, it is still the best form of moving value all over the world. Because now you can push that electricity for cheap, right, for 4 cents, and then we can use that electricity here to power this show, right?
Yeah.
And not have to spend the money that it takes to get to it. So like, he's just really dialed in his like, oh, like let's stop talking about like gold. Like it is gold, but it's other shit. And then he just goes around this like, I played it on the solo rip that went up today, by the way.
Oh, nice.
A clip of his.
Talking in bits.
Yeah, Talking Bits solo rip of Saylor. I think this came from like Neil Jacobs though. I think he's the one that put it together and Saylor retweeted it. But it was like a video of him just like 3 minutes of him talking, of Saylor talking to Tucker Carlson and like I said, really dialing in his orange pilling. I mean, us Bitcoiners, I've heard him been talking about it for a few years now. So we kind of get it.
Yeah.
But like, it was one of those first few times where I heard Saylor where I was like, oh shit, I got to send this to my pops. Like, this actually makes sense. That's why I figure I bring up Saylor in this conversation, because maybe it's also we're not their age, so we don't understand their pain points. Like that's why the orange pilling is like an uphill orange pill, as opposed to somebody like a Saylor coming in and saying like, all right, well, you may not be as wealthy as I am, but I'm about your age.
Yeah.
Right? And I understand, that your money is your money and all that, but he'll go into his spiel. And then I think older people will get that as more like, oh, that makes a ton of sense, as opposed to like, what the fuck's Jose talking about? This young ass kid. Don't know what the fuck he talking about. Doesn't got this, doesn't got that. So that's just my opinion on that. But
yeah,
it's a lot, man. Orange pilling is hard, man. I think it's meant to be hard, man. I think the old good old you get Bitcoin at the price you deserve. I think that's prevalent, and I don't think you're supposed to have 100% orange pill success rate. If you do, I would be worried. Yeah,
that quote, you get Bitcoin at the price that you deserve. In the beginning, I really contemplated on that too, and
like agree with it or disagree with it?
I do agree with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, you disagreed with it in the beginning or no?
No, I was thinking about it. I thought it was pretty interesting how over time the people that don't need it, the wealthier class, they're pretty comfortable right now.
Yeah, I saw somebody post this morning. You and I are under the impression, and a lot of us are under the impression that there is a world that's coming pretty damn soon where Bitcoin is the exchange, right? Like you're using Bitcoin everyday transactions.
Yeah, I was just gonna actually bring that up.
Yeah.
There's a few people that work at Unchained, even people that are in the Bitcoin space just generally.
Yeah.
They think it's going to happen in 10 years.
I think less. I think I was going on 10 years, but at the rate that they're doing what they're doing with this dollar's going to die really fast. Like I thought it was going to be 10 years before it died. It's dying in real time, really fucking fast.
Yeah.
So what happens after that? Is there there's a time where now CBDCs and then Bitcoin kind of have this like little like round robin or whatever.
Yeah.
But once sort of like people figured out that sending text messages over SMS was not the safest way to do it, and then they navigated to encryption. That's where they're gonna taste the CBDC. They have no choice. They're gonna put it down their gullet.
I mean, it's happening. It's definitely.
Well, they're gonna push it down their gullet. You won't be able to get a paycheck unless you're accepted in CBDCs.
Yeah.
Right. So it's gonna be one of those things. But I think very fast people are gonna gravitate to, because it's a free market, to the most secure, the most, censorship resistant money. And they're going to figure out that, Bitcoin does, well, let me say CBDC does what Bitcoin does, because it's not the other way around. But the people that are coming in from the CBDC side of things, when it comes to a ledger or when it comes to digital money, they're going to be like, Bitcoin does that more securely. And sort of like they had their text messages, they're going to go to encryption really fast. So I think it's within 10 years less than that. I think they're going to roll out the CBDCs, and don't listen to me, whoever the fuck is watching this. But they're going to roll out the CBDCs.
Two viewers watching this.
It doesn't matter. Just don't listen to what I'm saying. You. This ain't financial advice.
Well, hold on. So CBDCs for people like friends that are into this, it's central bank digital currencies. And 100%. So it's not going to feel that different from a user experience perspective.
Because all on an app.
Yeah, it's going to be on an app.
Which it is now.
It's essentially eliminating all of the smaller commercial banks.
Yeah.
All of the middleman, or just overall smaller banks.
The privacy inherent in fiat, which a lot of people forget about that. But like, I mean, when you and I were growing up, like money was cash.
Yeah, you had cash.
And it was valuable for everything from like the higher business dude to the lower drug dealer dude because it was anonymous.
Yeah.
It was private. Like, I give you cash and we out. It's over, right? No more. So yeah, you're right. I think people, millennials, like, you know, and anything underneath that, probably going to be like, this is the same thing because they're used to interacting with digital money anyway.
Yeah, or so they think. Until the IRS knocks on your door, or sends a message saying, "Oh, you can't shop at this market today, because you said something, that we don't agree with," which is happening across, at least in China.
Yeah, I got another one for you. Hey, your employer decided not to pay you because you didn't dress the right way.
Did you see PayPal? I mean, they rolled it back recently, but I mean, the fact that they even introduced in the U.S. is pretty shocking. That they were like, "Oh, let's just test this out. Let's see how people react to this."
Failed pretty quick.
And so what happened with PayPal is, and I mean, I didn't go on their website, so I just saw this online.
Yeah.
So please fact check me if I'm wrong here, but I saw a lot of people discuss it, that if you portray views about, I don't know what it was, I think it's gender identity views or something like that. Something
whatever they
along
want.
Some ideology that PayPal deems needs to be in line, they will deduct $2,500 from your account, which is shocking that they would because of what you think and what you're going to portray. You may be wrong in what you think, or maybe what you're portraying, even if it's not aligned with PayPal, still, like, and maybe it's not, maybe it's not, it's your own subjective opinion and it's not factual, but still they have no right for them to be able to deduct what you've earned, based off of just expressing your ideas and through your speech. And so that's happening in China. I mean, it's been happening for a while, where they have central bank digital currencies, and you're restricted with your actions and where you can, participate in society based off of if you're out of line in any way with the CCP's regime.
It's crazy.
Their ideas or their agenda. So, for instance, like if you're in China, I'm just going to give just a rough, small example here, but if you say something out of line with the government of China, CCP, and they find out, which they will,
they will,
they definitely will, they could just say, you're not going to shop at Whole Foods today, you're going to shop at Walmart. No offense to Walmart, but I like Whole Foods better.
Yeah, fuck Walmart. I tell you, man, my mouth is going to get me in trouble, but yeah, fuck Walmart.
And so this is just a small example and a very, just not, pertinent example where it would affect, it's like of dire consequences to your health, or but it kind of is in that example, I guess, like what you can shop, higher quality foods. But what I'm saying is that they have complete control over your economic activity and your just daily actions. And so Bitcoin,
it's tyranny, is
this new technology that essentially prevents that, because honestly, without Bitcoin, this would have been inevitable, where you have central bank digital currencies in your jurisdiction, and they really have total control over your views and your speech and your actions and just your way of being. So I think it's really, especially the people that I meet that are not in Bitcoin, but they like I say, the gym community that I go to, they're very open-minded, they're independent, they clearly value their mind and body. and they make decisions for themselves, and they think critically. And so to lose that ability to think critically and to then make your own decisions is, I mean, it's a dystopia. In my
That's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Don't be the one that gets Bitcoin when it's already the global exchange. Just because then you'll just be, I guess, trying to get by, and that's standard. But yeah, man, that's back to my Twitter profile. And what I really do and what I really focus on is that it's like, now you can't censor me for my money. So you shouldn't be able to censor me for what I say. And back to the PayPal situation. The only people that are getting censored on Pay, even though they rolled it back, but I'm sure they're still doing it. The only reason people are getting censored on PayPal is because they're relying on the YouTubes of the world, right? They're relying on these big chains, because who the fuck is going to report to PayPal? It isn't going to, PayPal, they don't have a team that's just listening to every single piece of content that's in the world and saying that doesn't. It's basically like the pyramid. Oh, YouTube censored you. That gives a flag off to the PayPal team. They want to know how you're getting donations. And if you happen to be getting them through PayPal, they could do CBDC bullshit, which is they're going to censor you. RSS feed, I say it again, value for value. You can't censor the money. You can't censor the donation. And you can't censor the speech. This is something that we are avidly, I say we as like a community of podcasters, most people don't even understand it because a lot of podcasters are still under the nuance of, I want to be Joe Rogan, which is, that's all great. That's, I listened to Joe Rogan. I was listening to him yesterday. But the fact of the matter is that there's only one Joe Rogan. There is no other Joe Rogan. Mm-hmm. There won't be another Joe Rogan. But there could be another Shane Larson. There could be another Jose. There could be, right? We could be in these we could fight these different fights that ultimately help the medium. But no matter how great Joe Rogan's conversations are, he's not helping censorship-resistant talk. And he's the one that needs it the most. The only thing that he lucked out on is his bag and his clout is big enough for him to be able to say whatever he wants to say. Because in the terms of that contract, and I don't know the specifics, but I know the nuance of it is I can say what I want to say and have who I want to have on without Spotify's say. Mm-hmm. If that clause was not in that contract,
oh, I see what you're saying.
You would have never got any of these Joe Rogan episodes.
The amount of influence that he has, the contract that he sets up with Spotify.
He's putting pressure on them.
Yeah.
Because what Spotify is going to do is, like, look, I don't know Alex Jones' numbers, but he's easy to cancel.
Yeah.
Right? Because to him, it's like, well, what the fuck is he bringing to us? Nothing. See you later. Mm-hmm. Right? But now have Spotify basically say, hey, Joe Rogan, we just gave you $100 million, but you're going to leave. Or we're going to break the contract because you said some shit about COVID.
Yeah.
Who's losing in that deal? Joe Rogan or them? They are.
Yeah.
That's an easy answer. They are.
Yeah.
So they're going to do their best virtue signaling as long as they have them in contract. I actually think I was talking to you on Twitter the other day about this. We'll see what happens when that contract is over. But if Joe Rogan, knowing Adam Curry, right, like knowing him specifically well as like friends, real parent, knowing the fight that Adam Curry is doing with podcasting 2.0, if Joe Rogan doesn't move towards censorship resistant podcasting or do anything in that nature and continues to behave anonymous, like he's not aware of this, because he pretends he's not aware of the Bitcoin plight, but he is. He's 100% aware of the plight.
I don't think he pretends. I think so,
because he doesn't bring on people to talk about it.
But I think it's just because it's his natural curiosity. I think I commented on this. I think it's his natural curiosity. So like he puts on people that comes to his attention. I mean, he's such a big player in the game of podcasting, and so he probably gets swayed here and there. Sometimes I don't really know. I'm just making assumptions. But he also goes along the lines of just what naturally makes him curious.
Right.
Obviously, he has no troubles with his financial situation.
Right.
But, for me, I'd like to think that I have a good sense of a bullshit detector or intuition. I think that Joe means well and that he wants to. I mean, dude, he's mentioned. I mean, my tweet that I put out was the amount of times that Joe Rogan states in various different episodes for people that have different occupations and they have a wide spectrum of what they're doing in life. He comes back to this claim of, if we were to separate money from politics, things would, humanity would flourish in a much better direction. And he says this a lot. I watch a lot of his podcast episodes. I like his show. And he says this all the time. I'm like, dude, like you have the ability. I mean, Adam Curry is the only resource that he probably needs from a personal relationship perspective, like in his personal circle, but I just think that it's not at the forefront of his mind to, or he might not. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that it's just not grabbing his understanding in the way that it does for some of us. And if he realizes, like, okay, I understand all the objective technological properties of Bitcoin and what it does for humanity and, these in multiple different aspects, and he grasps that fully, then I think that he would start to have more people, invite more people on his show.
I think what you're saying of it, and I listen to Rogan a lot as well, and if by any way this means that I'm calling him a bullshitter, I'm not. He's not a bullshitter at all. That's not what I'm getting at here. What I'm getting at here is that actually debunks your curiosity theory, because if he continuously brings over separating politics and money, you're curious.
Yeah.
Right? So he's already curious. And it doesn't take very much to see how can we do that for somebody, especially here in Austin, to be like, well, why don't you talk to me or like somebody, et cetera, right? Now, this is all probably wishy-washy conversations because next Joe Rogan episode could have Michael Saylor and we don't even know, right? You know what I'm saying? So this is all like theory. But my point is that what you just said is he's not pushing free speech forward, even though people think he is, because he gets to talk about COVID and all this stuff. There's a lot of people that are in the impression that he's saving podcasting because on the Joe Rogan show, they could talk about these touchy subjects. What I'm saying is the only reason he can is because of his clout and his bag. What he needs to do is set up other people to be able to do the same thing. And without the size of the clout and without the size of the bag, because he also, and I listen to Rogan a lot as well, he also talks about freedom of speech being very important and how we need to not be censoring people. Fam, you have Adam Curry sitting right in fucking front of you, and excuse me, not you, just this stuff boils me up, telling you how you can stop censorship from happening. You are the biggest podcaster in the world, and it doesn't take nothing but to flick a finger to make something move or to make something move like in motion that'll basically help free speech every single day. But the only thing you do is you sit behind your bag, you sit behind your clout, and then you poke jabs at it. Oh, we shouldn't be able to censor people. Of course not. There's people that are fighting that fight. You've had people on your show, Curie, that are explaining to you that they're fighting that fight, yet you sit in your throne and you don't do anything to push that movement forward. He's not a bullshitter. His show is fantastic. His guests are fantastic. His energy is fantastic. His interviewing skill is fantastic. He is fantastic because I think he's just a great dude. Yeah. He's just a funny dude. But if we're talking about podcasting, which is something I am passionate about, he has mastered fiat podcasting. We are mastering censorship resistant podcasting. Yeah. He needs to catch up because he's the biggest guy to do it. And if not, then I could give two shits about his higher message. I care about his conversations, but his higher message eliminates because there's people that are fighting the fight of censorship resistant free speech. He talks about Alex Jones. He brings him on to that, but he's not doing anything to help these individuals. And what he can do is educate people on Bitcoin, right? Like that's have people on to educate himself, because as a podcaster, I'm learning that when you have people on, you learn shit. So you can have people on to stoke your curiosity, and then you can actually inform people that there is a way to not get censored, and that's podcasting 2.0, and that's RSS feeds, but that's not going to happen because he's under that contract. And although he has his side of the contract, which is I could bring on who I want and say what I want, they have their side of the contract, which is like, you'll lose that check. And maybe his pain point is not money. Apparently not.
No, it's not.
But obviously he doesn't want to get rug pulled from his money either.
Right.
So I listen to Rogan. I take a lot of value from his conversations. But to me, as I start to see this movement happening where we are being censored and we are being shut down and we are that, his messaging seems to be a lot less to me because now he's starting to turn into a legacy outlet. Which is like, oh, you're just CNN, bro. You just don't get the fight that's happening right now.
Yeah.
You get different fights, and you talk about. I heard he's supposed to have Mr. Will Harris on, which is regenerative farming, all that. So Joe still gets the fights that are need to be had, but he's not getting the one that's stopping people from getting censored, which is right in front of his fucking face. And the reason he's not is because there's too much money on the line for him.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah.
It's right there in his face. I mean, he could get censored, but he won't get censored.
I think it will come in due time.
Sure.
But I mean, like he's had I don't want to make this whole first episode about Joe Rogan. But,
nah, and we both think Joe Rogan's amazing.
Yeah.
But this is not a shot at Joe Rogan whatsoever.
Yeah, he had the founder of Substack on. I really liked how that conversation was constructed and how Substack, as of now, is a platform to not censor speech, not censor journalists. There's a lot of journalists, Barry Weiss, Glenn Greenwald, Martyr Made. Who am I missing? There's a few other journalists out there that have left their corporate media company position and started their own thing. And so he had like that conversation was really cool. So he's getting there, and I think eventually it would. He will.
I got a question for you. Do you think he gets there before he gets censored or after he gets censored?
I would say before.
I hope so.
I would say before.
Because I don't want it to hit that pain point and then be like, we told you so. But the thing is that they're going to renew his contract. There's no reason why they wouldn't. You have a Spotify app. Well, I don't want to speak for you. I have a Spotify app just for the Joe Rogan show. I don't have a subscription. I don't care for one. I don't listen. I have other things to listen to music to. So like, I'm not the only one. I'm not unique. Spotify is probably bringing in 30 million new subscribers, new people, just by having his name on there. He's going to get renewed, and he's not going to get censored because of that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't solve the average dude's problem, the Alex Jones problem. I call it the Alex Jones problem because he's just the fastest dude to cancel. But like right now, this episode right here, if we talk about something, they'll cancel your ass. And you're just an average dude that just wants to talk. Right? Yeah. And he should be, maybe not on his show, but indirectly, like supporting that. Right? Like putting money towards Podcasting 2.0 projects. Yeah. Right? Putting money, and maybe he is. Who knows?
He could be. Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah. But like, all you have to do is just name, for me at least, and who the fuck am I? But for most people is name drop that this stuff is being worked on. Right? Like, hey man, like there is a way for Alex Jones not to get dropped.
Well, I don't know about Alex Jones, but
Adam Curry has on his show.
Yeah.
But like, all right, when do we get the Joe Rogan experience on Valley for Valley? When can I stream it from set?
TM, hopefully soon.
Yeah. And that's when I'm going to be like, oh, he knows. Like he knows that now he can, and conversely, because this is another part that a lot of people forget. How much better does that show get when it can't be censored?
I don't know if it would. Do you think it would radically change? I don't know if it would.
Radically is a big word. That I don't mean. But like now, like how many? And this is something we don't know. How many people can't be on the show because of censorship?
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And now
because of Spotify. I mean, I think.
Yeah. Censorship.
I don't know how his contract is laid out. I don't know. I mean, at this point, we're kind of assuming things.
They have fucking Joe Rogan apologizing to who the fuck was that old rocker? Was it Mick Jagger or somebody? Like, that was some old dude that was like, bitch. Spotify put Joe Rogan on a microphone to apologize to one of these old Rolling Stone dudes or something like that about COVID. This is where the contract is killing you. Mm-hmm. That was not him waking up and saying, well, I care about this dude. Let me just record a message. No, Spotify reached out to you and said, yo, fam, I know we have a contract and I know you can have whoever you want on, but we also need protection. You need to go in this guy because he's our highest streaming old school artist, and you need to apologize to him. Fam, what? Joe Rogan apologizing for free speech is bonkers. And he's had to do it twice since he's been on Spotify.
Yeah.
One for the, I don't know, let's just say the N-word. I know I can say it here freely, whatever, but because I am not trying to mean no intent. But one for the N-word thing that started going around, where he was saying the N-word a lot over and over. Homeboy got on the microphone and apologized. And then the other one was that, I forgot that, it wasn't Rolling Stones. It was one of those high-grossing streaming artists that's just an old rock band that came out and was like, yo, you need to cancel Joe Rogan on Spotify because he's talking about COVID vaccines, and I believe in COVID vaccines and all that. And then before his next episode, there was like a little standalone episode of Joe Rogan apologizing for 10 minutes. Fuck out of here, fam.
Yeah.
Fuck out of here, fam. That's where I'm talking about. Like now, I want him to understand this before he gets canceled because I want to really him to stick to his guns. He's all for free speech. The Substack example is a really good example. But what about for voice, man? What about for podcasting? You're the pioneer. You're the leader here, right? You need to be able to do something that tells other people like, hey, man, if Spotify does this to me, guess where I'm going? Where y'all hanging out at? But he's not, man. That bag is big, bro. $100 million is a lot of money, fam.
Yeah, I mean, he's had Adam Curry on a few times, and I've listened to Adam talk about not like too far in depth, but like as far in depth he would go with like Marty. But he's gone on Joe's podcast and mentioned podcasting 2.0, implementing Bitcoin briefly. So, but yeah, it's not like something that he's putting a lot of his time and energy into right now. But.
And I get it, because if you were to scope out, I don't know how much Curry's leading the pack, obviously, on getting sats streamed. I don't think you're making $100 million off sats.
No,
not yet. I think it's very early for value. So it's not my point that you can't eat, bro. It's not my point that you can't get your bag, because I love your show. I've gotten so much value from that show. Mm-hmm. It's just that there's a fight that's taking place here that obviously the people at Substack decided to take on. Obviously, a lot of different companies have decided to take on, but the biggest podcaster in the world refuses to take it on.
Yeah.
That's my downside of what's happening with Joe Rogan is he can come in this room right now, and you should come talk to Shane. He should come in this room right now and basically be like,
episode 2, Joe Rogan on the Shane Larson.
That'd be amazing. I'll be right there sitting. But he, once again, he can easily say the easiest thing possible, which is like, hey man, I feel you, but I'm living the life that I want to live, and it doesn't matter what you say.
Yeah,
I get that. I really do. Like, it's like,
yeah,
he says it a lot on his show too, which is like, the point is just to do it how you want to do it. So I get
that's
it.
That's what I want to do too.
Yeah, same here too. But I also understand, maybe it's the Caribbean in me, maybe it's whatever it is. It's that like none of this stuff happens for us just sitting around and waiting for it to happen. Right?
Yeah, no, I would say like a few months in, I would say maybe half a year into really learning about Bitcoin and seeing how to make this successful and for just us to have a good life, just us, me and you, had to have a good life. The people around us also need to be educated on this. And yeah, I mean, you need to be able to help others. I mean, overall, just for me, at least from my perspective, just being generous with your time and trying to educate people and giving back to others is just that your quality of life is better.
Yeah.
So yeah, you do need to allocate some of your time to, providing that information for them, educating them, giving them resources, whatever it may be, and not just, be a sitting duck, for sure.
Yeah. So like, to me, I'm passionate about it. That's why I spend my time on doing. That's what I'm sure you spend your time doing. And it's that. But now, once again, the bag is influencing, because he brings people on because he's curious, but he empowers his listeners. And if you want to separate money and state, we all know that it's a fact. Even if it's a small sample size of the population, whatever, 10%, less than that, it's still a fact that the only way to do so is with encryption and with Bitcoin specifically. Mm-hmm. So like, I don't think that he is so far down that hole that he's like, I don't get it. He gets it. I honestly, genuinely think that there is, just like every other negotiation, there's one side of a contract and there's another side of a contract. And yes, you will live the life that you want to comfortably live. But sometimes, and I don't want to speak for him, I speak for myself, it's about the mission than it is about the comfort. Mm-hmm. $100 million, I'll take that any day. Hit me. And I hate fiat. And you give me $100 million right now and I'll be happy as shit. But I still have a mission that I have to drive in. I still have an end goal that I have, and that's free speech being censorship resistance, just like 3D printers, right? And those guys are basically saying 2A and the Second Amendment is censorship resistance, because we will go and we will make handguns, right?
Yeah, I don't know if you're bringing this up, if you saw what Canada just did.
No, actually I did see it, but I've been going down there. I've been trying to ask
for the people that haven't paid attention to this, but on Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister,
not surprised.
Prime Minister of Canada's
Goomba
Twitter profile, he announced that they are banning the sale, purchase, transfer of handguns in the entire country. That was pretty interesting. But
so here in the United States, I don't know how it was in Canada before that. Anyway, did they have a 2A in Canada? I don't know what that was about. So I can't speak for that. Like here, we have a 2A.
Yeah.
So like my point here is that I've been going down the 3D printing rabbit hole for a little while to no success, to no avail. And I've tried to have a few people come on, but I can see why they don't want to come on.
I think I know someone that could potentially go on your podcast.
All right, please do. I've reached out to a few as well, and I get it. That's a subject.
Yeah.
And you don't really want to dox yourself. But the fact of the matter is those people die on that hill because they understand that amendment or that, whatever, that can be flipped on you with tyranny. But this cannot be flipped on us with tyranny. So the same thing with free speech and us being able to say whatever we want to say. We now have the tools we need to make sure that it doesn't even matter if it's ingrained in anything or if it's a law of the land. We're going to make it happen because we deserve that and we need that, right? So now all Canadians, I don't know what their 2A was before that, you're basically ready for tyranny. Now you can't even defend yourself. Now it's going to happen just full blown. It's happened in history. It's going to happen again. So when you censor speech and you censor the ability of an audience or a population to defend itself, you really just have a sitting duck ready to get taken over.
Yeah.
So once again, like if we are here to do something, it's to push something forward. And I specifically believe that in podcasting specifically, because podcasting is the last form of truth that we have left. That's the last news you can get, education you can get that's been untampered. Why are we not doing our very best to make sure that can never go away or be blocked out? I know there's many people that are, but it still baffles me. And it doesn't. It's fiat, man. It's fiat. I'm sorry. We love Joe Rogan. It's fiat, fam. Why some of the biggest podcasts, let's take it off of him because there's a few other big podcasts in the space that are not doing it either. Why are these massive voices in the space not fighting for censorship resistance of speech? And then they go on their show and say, censorship resistance is wrong. Fam, you have the opportunity to move this much further than I can. Why are you not doing that? I know why. Bags, bro. Fiat. It's the only thing you can think of. It's the only thing you can think of. Why would you not want to move that over? Oh, because I'm going to lose my bag if I do. For a while. I mean, people are still going to stream your stats. You're going to get money. And you can still do sponsors on Value for Value and all that. But what those guys are thinking is I can't get paid now because I'm going to go fight this fight that maybe I'm unsure about, but maybe I just don't feel like fighting. That's cool. But I'm going to separate the ones that are fighting versus the ones that are not, no matter how big their pedestal is. And that's where I'm at. That's
a noble cause.
It has to be, Shane, because it leads to a world full of bullshit, bro. Like, nobody wants to be censored, even if their information is like stupid or I don't want to harp on Rogan a lot, but he says that too. Like, stupidity is supposed to be as public as, real good, focused, conscious thought, because it's that free market of you being able to decide what it is you want to listen to or what it is you want to learn or who you're trusting with the source. That's fine. But the fact of the matter is that, like, we don't want anything to be censored from the basic dudes like you and I to the top tier dudes like him. And then what they're going to do is they're going to allow us to build it, right? And us to do the fight and us to do all that just to basically, when they get censored and the bag gets jeopardized, jump on over here and try to act like they were with it the whole time. Oh, I understood this. No, this is about free speech. And then not give credit to the individuals that fought it and pulled it across the finish line. It's just like these Bitcoiners sit out here, these developers, and they pull stuff through the finish line. When these big companies, these big podcasters get involved, we all disappear. And then they act like it was all theirs when all we did was like basically get it to them. And there's something to be said about that, but I am furious for that happening because those guys can help. And they don't have to just get it when we give it to them. They can help us. And then that's how it all becomes better faster, by the way, right? Because there's a lot of shit going on in the world, and a lot of people want to say a lot of stuff about what's going on in the world, but they can't because of YouTube, because of policies, because of PayPal, because of all this other stuff. So my whole rant here is Rogan, go talk to Curie again. You know about this stuff, bro. And that's not just Rogan. I listen to Joe Budden, and that's from the culture. Joe Budden has a very massive following as well. And same thing to him, bro. Like, he got shitted out of a Spotify deal. He was one of the very first Spotify exclusives, if not the first.
Oh, really?
When Spotify was testing giving exclusivities for podcasts. The Joe Budden podcast was the very first one, way before Rogan ever even was thought of, to come onto that network. He did 3 years with them. And this is all transparent. You can listen to Joe Budden's episode about this topic. He got I think it was about 25 million new people to subscribe to Spotify since his contract started to the contract ended. 25 million people at $15 a pop. I don't know what that math is, but that's a nice amount of money. Right? So they started talking to Rogan. They started at the end of his contract. They started talking to Rogan. They started talking to, I think it was like Amy Schumer. Right? They started talking to all these like big shots or whatever. And then they went, and since he built that platform of subscribers coming to one place, they basically shortchanged Joe Budden and gave a lot of that money to Joe Rogan. So Joe Budden brought 25 million people over to this platform. And because you had all that money now to give to Joe Rogan, the guy who tested it and made it work for you got scrap change. Verbatim, he says, Spotify came to me, they wanted to give me half the original contract, and then they tried to bribe me and my team by giving us Rolexes. This is transparent. This is all on audio. Where did all that money go, Spotify? Where it went for you to get a Joe Rogan. But Joe Rogan didn't fight that fight. Joe Budden did, and a few others. They made that a viable solution and business for you. They should get it. They didn't. Joe Rogan got it. So I'm seeing the same thing play out. We're going to guinea pig it and build it out for them. And then Joe Rogan's going to get his following and get all the benefits that come with that, while you and I kind of just sit around and now have to figure it out somewhere else. It's happened before. It's just happening in a different paradigm now. It's in podcasting 2.0 now, and it's not in subscription models. So although I love the guy, you can't just continue to come in with the same following, continue to devour everything that's been tested before you just because you have that following. One would say, bullshit, he got numbers. I say, I see past the numbers. I see what's happening.
Yeah.
Step up and join one of these fights. You didn't join that one. Join this one. Or I start to lose respect for you because you're about the bag.
Yeah.
It's tough, man. That's how I see it.
Yeah, that was a rant, man.
Hey, podcasting is very big to me, man. This isn't like, I don't like podcasters nowadays just see it as like a way to put my face on the camera, a way to talk shit, a way to make ad money. A lot of podcasters jump on stuff for that. A way to do what Marty's doing, a way to do whatever, X, Y, Z, whatever you want to do. I see it as the last free form standing way for us to have public speech without censorship. The RSS feed existed way before Bitcoin. We can now harness it to get paid with Bitcoin and be able to share our rants, our passions, our stuff like that. That's the difference. You can always just talk shit, but now you can be rewarded for that. Mm-hmm. And PayPal can't stop you. You know, all these pay rails can't stop you. So I'm passionate about podcasting extremely. And if you look at my profile, as battling free speech, censorship resistance on free speech with an RSS feed, there's many, but a RSS feed and Bitcoin. Those two things right there are going to liberate free speech, my opinion.
Yeah.
Sorry, man, ranting.
No need to apologize. Yeah, so when is Adam Curry going to jump on your pod?
Soon. I've talked to Adam Curry direct a few times, had the pleasure of meeting him. Great guy. Had a few opportunities to actually spend a good amount of time with him, and just scheduling didn't work out. So that's pretty damn soon. In respects to Adam Curry, I don't want to bring him on unless I know I'm ready to have him on. Mm-hmm. And it would be great if Adam Curry comes in person, which is great too. But yeah, soon, I hope. I don't want to say, co-sign for him, but I think he'll be game. If not, then never. But I think he'll be game, and I think it'll be an interesting conversation. But I think we're going to harp on the same things. Like, I don't think what I'm saying is any different.
What you're saying is exactly what he's trying to
right.
To accomplish with podcasting 2.0.
Yeah.
Is that the name of his website and platform?
All right, so
podcasting 2.0, or is
it's actually open sourced. So I Adam Curry is the face of that, but David Jones, who's Adam Curry's partner, does a lot of that development of it. So it was his idea along with David Jones, and they made it happen. Okay. So podcasting 2.0 is the name of the API.
Yeah. Right.
So and then value for value is the lifestyle. So I don't know if he actually owns anything on it, like since it's open source, I don't really think you could I guess you can own it. So yeah, it is that. But he has other shit. He has no agenda. He has like a bunch of different platforms. Yeah. But podcasting 2.0 is a podcast itself, which they educate you about value for value, and it's the API that powers value for value.
Yeah. And
then developers can go in, and since it's open source, use that library and all those commands basically and those API calls and plug it into their app. So that's how Fountain exists. That's how all these other apps exist. By leveraging podcast index, that API. So I'm sure he owns the name podcasting 2.0.
Yeah.
But the podcast index is the API and the value for value is the lifestyle that's derived from that API.
Yeah. I hope to, I will, once I get everything configured with you.
Yeah.
To not just use Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud. I do want to use Fountain.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, just get that value block in there. You can still be on those other platforms. When I talk to the listeners, I talk about legacy outlets.
Yeah.
So I call the Bitcoin standard of media, which is, you get your Bitcoin TV for video, you get your Fountain app value for value, or Breeze, or whatever it may be for listening. But I still know that a lot of my listeners are coming from legacy outlets. Like you're listening to me on Spotify, you're listening to me, and that's great. I want to be in all those places. But what I also want to protect against is if one day you wake up and I'm not on there, I want to give you somewhere to go. Right. And that's where that's powerful, where it's like, all right, well, don't worry about it. Like you guys can follow me here. Something Adam Curry said recently to somebody is that was claiming that he wasn't decentralized is that like, look, that's, they told me I was crazy when I left, and this is paraphrasing him. They told me I was crazy when I left Reddit. They told me I was crazy when I left Facebook, basically saying that like I'm going to decentralized mediums. And all he basically said was like, yo, anybody who's really interested in listening to what I got to say is going to follow me where I go.
Yeah.
And that's important. And a lot of people don't think about that. They think that they need like YouTube's algorithm or Spotify's algorithm, but that's just what you've been taught to do. Like like, share, subscribe. That's just what you've been taught to do. But ultimately, if you got something to say, as I'm learning what Talking in Bits is, they're coming and they're going to listen to you.
Yeah.
Right. And then now they can send you a fraction of a penny.
Yeah.
Which no conglomerate so far, Google, Apple, has been able to pull off. You can't send a penny. That's just impossible. They just don't see the benefit of that because why the fuck would they, right? They're just, we're losing money here, right? But now we have a way for you to have not only a financial value for value exchange system where you can actually get paid for your time, but a way for your audience to be able to vote for what they like.
Yeah.
And what Curie does very well is he calls his audience producers because they mold the show. And I kind of do this on Talking in Bits.
I've heard him say that too.
Yeah, and I do this on Talking in Bits, just not to his magical whimness. But basically, it's like now you don't have to send money into me because you think I'm broke or because you want to donate or because you think I need better lights or cameras. That could be a reason you send it in. You could just send some dough to say something goofy.
Yeah.
To be like, hey, yo, Shane, call me out, bro, and I'm going to call you out for saying that nonsense. Here's 5,000 sats for that. That's magical. That's transformal. That includes the community into the show and be a part of the show. That's something that I wish Hollywood wished they had. Which is like, yeah, when I go to a movie theater, I could boost up the scene in Avatar that was dope.
Yeah.
They bet their bottom dollar they wish they had that.
That could come.
But they won't because they have too much. This kind of loops back to like our parents and too much. Those legacy outlets have too much on the line to switch now. It's going to require a restructuring of Universal Studios or whatever. I just threw a random one out there. It's going to require new leadership to come in and see it differently for that to take effect. And it's not going to happen for a long time because sort of like politics, it's till you die. Right? Like these dudes, like head of Disney or whatever it is, like it's in that dude's family until it dies, like until they're gone. Right? And then they're never going to change because they're making, to loop this conversation and to make it make sense, they're making Joe Rogan numbers.
Yeah.
Disney's killing it. Why would they do value for value if they're killing it? Why would Joe Rogan do value for value if he's making 100 mil?
It's probably not more profitable,
right?
For them in the foreseeable future to move to that,
right?
That type of system overall.
Or just put it in your Spotify contract. Hey guys, I'm not exclusive to you anymore. I'm gonna be here, but I'm also gonna be in Apple, and I'm also gonna be on Fountain, and I'm also gonna be. Right, because he has that power. I think so. I'm not in the room where it happens, but fam, you got Joe Rogan in front of you, Spotify. Like, what are you going to do if he goes? So it's very easy for a clause to come in where Joe Rogan says, hey, I did X amount of years with y'all, 5 years with y'all, whatever it's been so far, whatever. I more than exceeded the 100 million because I'm sure he has. right? And now I want to re-up with you guys, maybe for a little bit more, but with this clause in here that now says exclusivity's gone. That's all remember what I said earlier about flicking the finger? That's all he needs to do to help fight the fight. Because now he's going to be able to do what he wants because he's decentralized, right? He's in all platforms. And then once one of the motherfuckers comes out and says, "Yo, Joe Rogan episode not available here," or whatever, we start winning. We start getting like that. Well, you can go on Fountain though. Well, you can go on. And that's all he has to do. And that's indirect. He doesn't even have to say any of the terms. He just has to indirectly help. And that's not happening because the bag is really massive. So,
yeah.
I mean, there's no heroes here. I love Joe Rogan. I love, back to Bitcoin, I love Jack Mallers. But there's no heroes here, man. You either fight the fight or you don't fight the fight.
Yeah.
That's it. And doesn't mean I don't like your content. It's not a binary. It's not like I'm canceling you because you don't do value for value. I still listen to all his episodes. Most of them. But I get to gauge a man off of virtues. I get to gauge a person off of what fights they choose to fight and what choose they not. Like that's something that I can do. It's the barometer of virtuousness, in my opinion. And you can't continue to go tell people that it's wrong for free speech to be censored, which it is. He's right, and not be curious. Back to your point about how can we stop that from happening, because you live in the mecca of Bitcoin. Like this is where you do your show at. Doesn't take much for you to figure out that there is a way for free speech to be much more resilient, and you can be a big part of that. Maybe I'm an idiot. Who knows? Listeners, you can let Shane know if I'm an idiot. That's fine.
We'll see. Yeah.
Boost them. Give us some boost.
For the 3 listeners that I get on here.
You say that, man, but this shit burns quick, man. It's like a virus, man.
Yeah.
Like people love hearing good conversations. I feel we're having a good conversation.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have many more good conversations. So don't be surprised, man. 3 is.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and the question is 3 loyal or 3 bullshitters, right? Because 3 loyal is amazing.
yeah.
3
yeah.
bullshitters, they're just, first time, last time.
I'm also, I think I expressed this to you before.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about how many listeners I'm going to get. I want to do this for free. Well, not for free, but like I'm doing this with the expectation that I'm not going to make any money.
100%.
Or it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
I just want to have these conversations. And I was telling a couple friends last night and the other day, I might have told you too, I was in the sauna the other day. I was talking to this guy, and he's been living in Austin for a few years. He's got this business, and his business is to lead immersive retreats with psychedelics. It's DMT, and I believe ayahuasca. And he was just telling me about his journey of doing that with his girlfriend, and how he goes to the Amazon, his experience just in the Amazon, not doing psychedelics, just being in the Amazon, completely disconnected.
Yeah.
And it's not really an industrialized civilization. Just being out there disconnected, what it can do for you. And so I was just like, hey, I might be starting a podcast. Would you want to just join on this? I literally haven't started it yet.
Yeah.
And he was just like, sure. And so that is really cool to me, because we all have obligations. We don't always have the time to really sit down and like ask cool questions with people that you look at and you're like, oh, wow, this seems like a very interesting and unique person. And to be able to just do that, just be like, hey, like this is my page, this is my podcast. Would you want to come on just to shoot the shit, and also to ask what you've been doing, how you were led to do this. And so,
yeah.
So for me, that's why I don't have a name for it, or I don't really have, I just don't have any expectations. I just want to be able to not have it so rigid. And because I correct me if I'm wrong, if you've spoken to other people that have podcasts, but do they feel once they have sponsors, that they're kind of on the line of what they should say, or like they might feel a little wary about what they're saying. And so I don't want to get to that point.
Yeah.
But some people like to have their podcast might be their main source of revenue.
Sure. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's a tricky conversation. I like to say the OJZ line to a lot of people, which is what you eat don't make me shit. And what's super important about that is what you just said is, ultimately at the end of the day, I don't pay your bills, bro. You don't pay my bills. I don't pay anything for you. You don't pay anything for me. If getting ads and getting sponsors So I have, to answer your original question, I have friends that do podcasts that have sponsors, and I've gotten gear, and I've gotten microphones, and I've gotten money, and then I got some that are more like me. Yeah, man, it really depends on what your end goal and what your revenue is like. I've been afforded in the position of being able to buy all this stuff on my own, being able to not depend on this as a day job, because it is not. A lot of people don't understand how difficult a podcast is and how much time it takes and how selfless it is. But, I'm under the impression that whether they want to admit so or not, you still don't want to offend your sponsor.
Right.
Right? Like, even if you purposely want to go out of bounds, like, but they paid for your, like, let's say your roadcaster or whatever, or your microphone. Damn, man, it'll be kind of like biting the hand that fed you for you to kind of piss them off and be like, I got the microphone, fuck you, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, like, I think the people that I've spoken to, they're either like adamant about like, oh no, I can respect my sponsors, it's all good, they help me keep the show going, or are threading the line between like, I'm gonna slightly censor myself just for their behalf. But I don't think anybody is basically saying, I say whatever I want, even with sponsors. I've never bumped into that person. Mm-hmm. So I think when you start getting sponsors, you start to limit yourself, whether unconsciously or consciously. And one thing I wanted to do from the very beginning is make this make Talking in Bits an audience-funded show.
Yeah.
So it's like, you guys are a voting system to let me know if my content should continue to thrive or not. But whatever it comes to improving this, whether it's buying a second camera, buying a second microphone like I did when I came to Austin and doing all that, which is not cheap at all, I'm going to pocket that. Because like I don't want to do this for money. I'm doing this because it's a platform.
It's fun.
I'm doing this to learn. I'm doing this to talk to other people. And then I'm trusting that my listeners also enjoy that. And now, for a fraction of the penny, can show me that.
Yeah, yeah. I look at other somewhat well-known podcasters and like the sponsors that they choose. For instance, Athletic Greens, or it's some kind of sponsor that just is a general like health supplement. And so I feel and these podcasters, they'll just talk about whatever they want to talk about. It doesn't seem like Athletic Greens is going to be like, well, you talked about Alex Jones, so I'm going to not give you.
Who knows? Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But
if you get that when you're sitting down at the table making a deal,
yeah.
I mean, you shake hands and you say, hey, you can't say this or that. I agree with you.
Yeah.
A good example of this, and I don't think there's any secret here. Meat Mafia guys, right? Like, so they do advertisement, but they do stuff that they inherently use themselves. So they're like Carnivore Bar. Right, and they do like some of the ranchers around here have advertisement through them, Holy Cow Beef and stuff, and they're getting paid in meat and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it's like,
nice.
Once again, back to the line, what you eat don't make me shit. Who the fuck am I to say that you should cancel all that because of value for value and because of this or because of that? Like, so that's their strategy. They should stick with it.
Yeah.
And there's a universe where you can still get sats and still have ads. Like, I don't like it, but there's podcasts that do that.
Yeah.
So like, it's not one or the other. It's, find your lane, and be bullish on it, right? And to me, advertisement is a waste of the listener's time, because you may convert some people, but ultimately, fam, I don't need to remind you every episode about Athletic Green. If you don't know about Athletic Green, then you're not paying attention.
Yeah, there's like
it's annoying, is what it is.
Yeah, for sure. Like if it's going on multiple times every single episode, Lex Friedman, he doesn't even say it. He'll just say, check the show notes for my sponsors.
Sure, right.
Which is, I think, a better way to do it.
But even in that conversation, his sponsors have to agree that that's okay.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of times where the sponsors actually send you the copy to read.
Yeah.
And you have to say, yes, I'll read this, or no deal. So, that's just who has the biggest balls in the room. What deal can you cut out? And what does your personal life need? Do you need that ad revenue coming in to keep the show alive? Because then you may say, hey, Jose, well, if I don't have the money, the show dies.
Yeah.
And then I could be like, oh, cool. Well, I want the show to live, right? Your show should live, so you should do that. But ultimately, just like in life, your actions and your demeanor and your actions will lead to your virtuousness and what it is that you decide to do. But listen, man, and you know this, and most listeners know this, I don't have to lay in bed next to you every single night. I won't, most likely won't be there at your deathbed. I won't. So there's nothing that you need to tell me to do,
man,
right?
You're not gonna be on my deathbed with me?
Maybe, but like, man, hopefully it's 90s and we're both dying. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like when you're having your final thoughts in life, your thought should not be like, damn, I didn't listen to Jose, or I did listen to Jose. That should not be it. It should be like, hey, I lived it the way I want to live it. I did it the way I want to did it. When I go home, if I'm having a rough day at work or doing this or doing whatever it is that I do, fam, my wife is the only one that has to deal with me. Not you, not anybody else. So as long as I'm making that person happy and making decisions that align with what that person signed up for, it's a win.
Yeah.
Right? And then whatever comes with it, comes with it. But boy, if you're living for other people, boy, if you're making decisions because of other people, boy, you're always going to be miserable. 1,000%. Because it's not you. And you in your own skull have to live with that. So, I mean, the ad conversation is very funny to me because people think I'm way too like, yeah, well, you need ads to do that. And you're way too strong on it. Maybe I am. Maybe the way I talk is also very aggressive. But ultimately, you do whatever gives you longevity.
Yeah.
If you want 100 episodes in and you need some sponsors for that, you better go look for some fucking sponsors. I don't need that.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm not.
I didn't mean you.
No. I'm just trying to assess your views of it through the experience that you've had.
Yeah. Never made an ad dollar, by the way.
It's all value for value.
All value for value. Just crossed 1 million sets.
Nice. Yeah, I saw that.
Which is really
Congrats.
good. Yeah, I had the Jose Burgos podcast 2 years before TalkinginBits. Tried to do a few ad things, didn't work out, didn't get a single dollar, and even tried to use the algorithms because Anchor will give you this like, hey, read this script and we'll give you $1 per view or something like that. Didn't get a single dollar from ad. I thought it was actually taken away from my creativity.
Really?
Because I wanted to make some money, and I was thinking the same thing like most podcasters think. How do I pay for this? How do I pay for my time? And my content sucked ass because I was so worried about doing ads and doing money.
Yeah.
I got TalkinginBits. I got rid of that shit completely. I knew from the very get-go when I started TalkinginBits that this would be direct. This would be value for value. And I'll find my value in other places. The network, the people that come on, now streaming sets. I find it in a different arena. But I've never once thought, even when I do this show every single week, twice a week, I've never once thought, damn it, this would be a good spot for an ad.
I do think like apps like Fountain, RSS feed, value for value, streaming sats, streaming money to people for specific scenes of a podcast episode
100.
or what,
Music.
Or music. This overall system, this protocol, this new way of media, to me, I think it's going to kick off, full gear within the next 5 to 10 years. If YouTube, Google, these major platforms continue to censor, because I've seen it like over the course of the past year. I've watched big voices, people that a lot of people, they're well known in society, and they get censored pretty, whether it's absolute deletion of their episode or if it's like shadow ban, which shadow banning is pretty crazy to me. Like you don't even know that you're getting banned, but because your profile is still there, the episodes are still there, but the algorithm can I don't know how that works. But like in a technical sense, but somehow they're able to, take your profile, your episode, whatever you're portraying online, and just completely put it to the side. I've even watched I've watched certain, I think his name's Sean Baker. He was a medical doctor. He's the carnivore. Well, he's not carnivore MD. That's another person, but he pretty much all he does is put out videos of him eating steak and eggs and posting clips of vegans and trying to, similar to probably Meat Mafia and Texas Slim for what he's doing for the Beef Initiative. He's just portraying how a meat dominant diet is really helping with solving a lot of health issues. Someone would try to type in his name in Instagram, and you'd have profiles that were just, they had 15 followers.
Yeah, blacklisted.
He would be all the way at the very bottom. Yeah. And so if that continues to happen, I can't see this value for value form, this system, going away at all. I think it's going to erupt, and
it really has. Yeah. For a guy like me to make 1 million sats, and 1 million sats is probably $200 or something like that. But
what do we got going on here? 19,000 right now.
Yeah, so it's about $197. But just the fact that came from it's the intentional effort to want to send somebody sign, right? You don't just say, well, I'm just gonna just send you some sats because like you made the decision to do that.
Yeah.
So for somebody to send me, their piece of 21 million supply cap, right? Just because I'm giving them some type of signal, like that's not going away. It's actually happening. It's a thing. But I know what you mean. It's gonna get more massive, more streamlined. I'm thinking about like artists, like music artists, like on Fountain right now. You can actually like drop your album on. You could do this anywhere,
cool.
but yeah, you could drop like each track being like a new episode.
Oh wow!
And then you have like your whole RSS feed, which is your album.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then people can stream your set.
That's so cool.
Looking for a dedicated way to do that, like an app that'll allow you to stream music in the future.
I saw. I mean, it was using an altcoin. I don't know what it was. Audius. The whole concept was really cool.
Yeah, so like we'll see that.
It was using its own coin, but you publish and you put up all your music.
Yeah.
People can stream money to you.
Yeah.
And there's no, I mean, I don't know if you'd have to figure out all the licensing for your own music and whatnot, but I wonder how much less work there is as an artist to really just use that type of platform.
No, it's going to elevate the game. I'm pretty sure, and they were talking about this. Dorsey, what he's doing with Tidal is this. And Dorsey and Jay-Z, when they partnered up.
Oh, Tidal. Okay.
Yeah, Tidal, what they're doing is this. They just haven't found a way to do it and launch it. It's going to hit the masses when Tidal announces Lightning streaming sat for sat. Right? And now what's going to happen is the indie artist is going to be able to thrive along with the record label artist. And it's literally deaf to the record label.
Yeah.
And which, if anybody knows anything about the record industry, deaf to the fucking record label.
Yeah.
Like it's so like back to Bitcoiners just fighting everything. Deaf to the record label is one of the biggest fights that's out there in media. Sort of like the podcasting fight that we're trying to do here, and we're gonna solve it with Lightning.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, you could do music, audiobooks. That's another one that I'm like, hey fam, can I stream safety and some sats if I'm listening to Bitcoin Standard or whatever? Like, there's a lot happening here, but it's all has to be under the premise of censorship resistance, not for the monetary gain. Yes, you'll get sats. Yes, you'll get money, but we need to protect, book burnings. Right, and music being censored. Hey man, I'm a hip hop guy. I go to look for my favorite artist on the day that their album releases on Apple Music, and because of that same algorithm that you talked about, they're not there. They're not there. They're just like, I gotta like find search and like be specific, and they're not there. That's censorship. Maybe it's not elimination, but it's censorship, because why can't I find my favorite album, 070 Shake album that just came out?
Yeah.
Because somebody up there decided that they can do what they want. And this is where Tidal will win, value for value will win, free speech will win, all this stuff will win, but only if we fight the fight, keep beating that drum. But because a lot of Bitcoiners think that they just sit around and hodl, right? Or they sit around and like, oh, I stream 5 sats to Shane. Keep it up.
Yeah.
Keep it up. There's a fight that needs to be fought. And that's kind of why I'm on there. But yeah, man, it's going to be fun the next few years. I don't think it's 10 years for a lot of these things. I see music's already happening. It's just a matter of time before somebody makes a dedicated app for it. Audiobooks, I've been waiting for it. That's one right there. Because deaf to the record label, deaf to the book publishers. I wrote a book before. It's a very small book. But dude, unless you're going to like Amazon Direct or you're going to... These publishers are a nightmare, bro.
Yeah, well, so I'm reading this book. It's called Chaos by Tom O'Neill. It's like 450-something pages. This guy, he was on Joe Rogan too. That's how I found him. But he was an investigative journalist for 20 years, studying the Manson murders, the topic of Hollywood in the 60s, CIA being involved with all of that. And his original plan was to release a 30th anniversary magazine article on the Manson murders. It ended up taking him 20 years of research, right? And he still, to this day, after going on Joe Rogan, selling all of his books, he still is not making money because people are suing him. Well, I don't know if it was the publishers. I'm not exactly who's suing him because I haven't gotten that far in the book. It might be some of the publishers because he kept saying like, hey, here's an update on all of my research. Yeah. And so if he were to be able to, throughout that 20 years, update his findings, showing the sources, saying, here are my findings. I mean, it might kind of be a spoiler for the book. Yeah. But just to kind of show some verification that he's doing this. And people are like, dude, I love what you're doing. Yeah. Like, I will buy the book when it comes out. No, like, if it takes 10 years, that's fine. I'm going to stream you $20 a month or whatever it may be. That's a really cool, because he was getting a lot of pressure. And granted, he's an amazing person for being able to pursue and do what he did, with the pressure of the publisher on his back. And eventually, I don't even think, like, he released his own book. He didn't even do the article. But that's a really cool concept for someone that's really trying to dig out the facts in that kind of overall topic, this investigative journalism. And it's a really important subject. Like the whole, I'm not going to get too far into this, but Chaos is a really cool book. There's another book called Helter Skelter that's written by the prosecutor of the Manson murders.
Okay.
And he was planning on writing the book in the midst of the trial. So what does that do? That kind of obscures the way that you're gonna do this.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a huge responsibility.
Absolutely.
So he's focusing on how he was gonna write this book. And this journalist, the writer of Chaos, pokes a bunch of holes in Helter Skelter, which is a very wide, a well-known book that talks about this crazy event that happened in the 60s.
Yeah.
And he pokes holes and finds truths and lies. And
need those people.
And so it was really cool. And kudos to him, man, for being able to put in all that time, focus, and energy for 20 years.
It's a long time, yeah.
20 years. And he's still not, he's still paying other people because he's getting sued.
Right.
But like that whole concept, though, of someone that's really dedicated. This kind of reminds me of Substack. Like there are journalists out there that have left mainstream media and, like Glenn Greenwald, all these people, they get a monthly subscription or annual fiscal amount sent to their bank account. And I've even seen Glenn say, hey, like I have family issues right now. That's why I'm not releasing as much content. And people are like, we understand. We love what you're doing.
Valid.
You're bringing out truth in a world, in a world of media where there's just so much lies and there's this construed amount of information that is following an agenda of a powerful bureaucratic organization. Mm-hmm. And so for that, I wouldn't be surprised if Substack, it totally goes from, value for value kind of concept of just sending in, obviously, what they're releasing, the amount of time and, the writings that they're putting out, they're going to say this is, maybe they can have a threshold of a minimum, like you have to contribute this much in order to make but, people that truly value what they're doing, they're going to send a decent amount of money. Yeah. And so I love that this is happening. And I love that you're really taking it, with a firm grip here, and you're kind of leading the way, because I don't go on Fountain as much as I should, and I probably will, now in the future, but there's probably not that many podcasts or a lot of content right now compared to other.
No, there is, and I just want to reiterate that it's not just Fountain; it's the RSS. Fountain is just an app that reads it. So there's a lot of Lightning podcasts that are coming on board. Some of your favorite podcasters, including Marty, is Lightning enabled. Yeah. So like it's more and more, but like how many of them push as hard as like I do or Kari do or like for the understanding? I don't know. There's a lot of things that play into that. You have to understand getting paid in Bitcoin. The thing with Substack that you were saying that I want to highlight is that they have to adopt Bitcoin or Lightning because there's no other way to do this.
I think they are.
Yeah, right. And there is no other way because the point of value for value is that like you're gonna give me what you feel is fit. It could be a penny or it could be whatever. You can't limit me to a paywall. You can't tell me that it's gonna be X amount of dollars minimum. That's not what value for value is. One, and then Substack is going to have to get the payment rails to agree with them, the PayPals, the Visas, the whatever to agree, and they won't. Or
I think they will though, eventually.
Is Visa going to let me send 50 cents? I don't think so.
Yeah. What I was going to say is that they might eventually. I don't think they'll have a choice of.
Oh, sure. That's a different conversation.
Crossing into the Bitcoin. Yeah, that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, but they could just do that by just enacting the protocol. And basically just saying, hey, now you can stream strats with GetLB or something like that on your browser and hit this paywall or whatever. That is to come. But once again, is this like slowness of these companies actually acknowledging that there's a fight happening or these entities that's really slowing this stuff down because it's already happening. Mm-hmm. It's already... Every single day, I could open up my Fountain wallet. I think this morning I got a few boosts, right? So like it happens every day. It's just the understanding from all aspects, which is podcasting is not easy. So you should be contributing to your favorite podcast and appreciate what they do for you. Being out and outspoken is not easy. It's another reason why you should keep that person alive or in front of a camera so that they can continue to be outspoken and fight the fight for you. But on the other end of the thing is like, sometimes I want to tell McCormick that his shit is worth nothing. You know what I'm saying? And then sometimes I want to go tell whatever, Adam or Marty or whatever, that I think their stuff is worth $25. Right? And I want to give them that without nobody saying anything. And I could be anonymous about it. Like, they don't have to see where it came from. Before I sign off on this point, Adam Curry says this magical thing that happened to him with No Agenda when they first started, which is like, we used to tell people $10. That was the donation or whatever. So people send $10 all the time. That's fantastic. And then he was like, well, we're setting a threshold for ourselves, right? Because you value it differently than the other. So he's like, we removed the threshold, then we told people to deliver whatever they want. So he's like, we got a few people sending $10. We got a few people sending $20. We got a few people $500, right? And then he was like, and then we had one person send $5,000.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, I think I remember him discussing this too.
Yeah, so it's like, would you have ever guessed that anybody would pay you $5,000? No. Never. I wouldn't either. Nobody. He didn't, apparently. So it's like, the value for value doesn't exist when there's like a, hey, you should donate this, or hey, it's literally like, if you're watching and you got something out of this, let me know how much. All right. And I've talked to you about this in conducting, we call it an international lifestyle now. So it's out of podcasting now. Now it's like in business. Me and you have talked about this plenty of times. Like, I have been going around with my business dealings lately, not setting a threshold on myself. I'm literally showing proof of work. So I either show what I'm working on, or I'll work on something and give it in return, like the deliverable or whatever. And then I'm basically putting the ball on their court, and I'm basically saying, hey, this is what I got. This is what I do. And this is what I've offered you. You let me know what that was worth to you and shoot it back my way. Right? And then you could denominate that however you want. You could denominate it in fiat, that I could do whatever I want, turn it into Bitcoin. You could denominate it in Bitcoin, or you could be clever and figure out some other way that is valuable. But what I found is the same thing that Adam Curry found out, which is, man, I was coming into town thinking that I was going to charge X amount of dollars, and there's people that are paying more. Right?
Yeah.
And how would I ever have known that if I just limit myself to fiat rules and say, oh, here's a contract, and here's what you owe me per this, and here, man, fuck that. Let's shake a hand. Let's talk about what you want and what I need and what I want. And let's just meet somewhere in the fucking middle as grown folks. And you know what happens if it doesn't work out? Then we don't do business anymore.
Yeah.
But we've lost that because it's about contracts now. It's about deals. It's about, you let me down. My show didn't do good, or right? Like, it's that. And I'm trying to get away from that. Value for value international lifestyle is a real thing. It's a bartering thing. Our ancestors did it. Look, you got something I want. I got something you want. Let's shake hands and let's figure it the hell out as grown people.
Yeah.
Love it.
I love it. Yeah, I think this camera's dead.
It probably is, but it's cool. The audio's not dead. We living.
Yeah, baby. Well, on that note, I think we can conclude this podcast. Jose, thank you for hopping on here, helping me with all the equipment, because I don't know what I would be doing without you right now. This wouldn't be going on right now. Why don't you just tell the 1 to 5 listeners where they can find you, and where they can listen to what you're putting out there.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. And if there is 1 to 5 listeners, you guys are going to be the leader for the tribe, for Shane's tribe here. So you first 5 listeners are going to be legacy of this. Get other people, share, rate, subscribe, all that. Talking in Bits is where you can hear me do what I've been doing here, which is just ranting. I'm very passionate about the stuff I talk about. I'm very passionate about what I believe in, sometimes to a fault, but most of the time to the advantage of others. So you can check me out on Talking in Bits. You can call Unchained Capital if you want some multi-sig help, and I'm here to help. But yeah, no, all jokes aside, at Deathbed on Twitter, at Talking in Bits if you want to follow the podcast on Twitter. All podcasting 2.0 apps. You can go to podcastindex.com/apps. And that's going to give you a full list of any of them. There's browser apps, there's mobile apps, and just trying to promote the Bitcoin standard of media and stream some sats to this show. Give Shane some boost. Let him know what he could do better, what he could do worse, and conversely go over to Talking in Bits and do the same thing. Let us know if you like it. Let us know if you don't. If you give me a topic to talk about, I'll give you a split. You can earn some sats that way passively. If you think my cover art is trash, submit some. I'll give you a split. And if you think my music is trash, submit something and I'll give you a split. It's a value for value world we're trying to promote here. But I appreciate it, Shane, man. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, man.